Abbiamo messo in sicurezza la posizione! Abbiamo perso la posizione, ragazzi!
After the 7th Battle of the Isonzo River, that front, the Italian front, had settled into a war of attrition kind of like we're done. So how do you break that? Well, if you're Italian Army Chief of Staff Luigi Cadorna, you launch the 8th battle. It's almost monotonous. It's almost monotonous, but here goes. After the 7th Battle of the Isonzo River, that front, the Italian front, had settled into a war of attrition kind of like we're done. So how do you break that? Well, if you're Italian Army Chief of Staff Luigi Cadorna, you launch the 8th Battle of the Isonzo River.
German intervention is not partial.
I'm Indy Nidell. Welcome to the group. Last week, the Romanians attacked the Bulgarians in Dobrogea. The five-nation Allied army advanced in the Balkans. 2 new battles began at the Somme, and the German ambassador to the Ottoman Empire was recalled for speaking out against the Armenian genocide. Here's what came this week. The Italian front roared back into life, for starters. Now, even though we refer to the 7 previous battles of the Isonzo River as separate things, to the soldiers involved, it was just one long daily fight with constant artillery bombardment, airplanes dropping bombs, and snipers on the prowl. Cadorna had already planned for the 8th battle of the Isonzo River, and it would be a 2-pronged attack. The Duke of Aosta, with 6 divisions, would attack on the northern Carso on a front of only 3 kilometers, while his other 6 divisions would maintain pressure on the southern Carso. 3 more divisions would attack the enemy north of the Bubba River, south of Gorizia. The Italians, with both men and guns, far outnumbered the Bulgarians. They had bombarded the Austrians all last week, and the intensity of the artillery was so great, really concentrated on a narrow front, that the Austrians took over 4,000 casualties in spite of the strength of their defenses and fortifications. Fog and rain had put a temporary end to the bombardment. On the 7th, it began again from over 1,000 guns, raining down on the Austrians for the next 2 days. On the 9th, the Italians ran a series of probing infantry attacks in the afternoon over weak spots. The next day, after a final barrage, the Italians poured out of their assault trenches onto the battered enemy. By the afternoon, the Italians made substantial gains. South of Gorizia, the defenders were pushed back nearly 2 kilometers, and it really looked for a minute like Cadorna's big breakthrough was here. The Austrian general, in spite of the strength of their defenses and fortifications, fog and rain the bombardment. On the 7th, it began again. Over 1,000 guns raining ahead down on the Austrian infantry for the next 2 days. On the 9th, the Italians ran a series of probing infantry attacks in the afternoon, looking for weak spots. The next day, after a final barrage, the Italians poured out of their assault trenches onto the battered enemy. By the afternoon, the Italians had made substantial gains. South of Gorizia, the defenders were pushed back nearly 2 kilometers, and it really looked for a minute like Cadorna's big breakthrough was here. But Austrian General Svetozar Moroyevich von Boynya's troops, many of them Ukrainians and Romanians from the Empire, launched counterattack after counterattack and took back over half the ground they'd lost. In the north and center of the Carso, it was the same, but not in the south. The battle there centered on Hill 144, and at first, it was going the same way, but was saved for Austria by First Lieutenant Theodor Vatkin from a Czech battalion, who ordered his riflemen to charge the advancing Italians, and at gunpoint forced a neighboring company of men to join in. The whole regiment soon followed his lead. They drove back the Italians. The South Carso was saved. On the 11th, artillery and infantry action was resumed, and it was both costly and vicious. Slowly, the Austrians regained ground. Cadorna wanted to continue the attack on the 12th, but both sides were basically too exhausted to do so. The Austrians had held on, but they couldn't continue to take losses at this rate. For the battle, they'd taken 38,000 casualties, the Italians over 50,000, possibly even 60,000. Cadorna believed he was winning the war of attrition, which he kind of was, since the Austrians were also fighting Russia and Romania and just didn't have too many troops to send here. He began planning for another battle that would come before winter set in and prevented new offensives. The Italians were actually making headway elsewhere this week. A dispatch from Rome this week told of them moving from Avlona on the Salonika front, in a region with really poor communications. The reports on attempts had been in both Dobruja and Transylvania. This was kind of true, except the Romanians still held positions in the Maros Valley. German General Erich von Falkenhayn, commanding the German forces in Transylvania, had numerical superiority and better railway access. By the 12th, he was facing the Romanians in the Torsberg, Trebial, and Buzău passes and forcing them back. The 13th, however, came the best news the Romanians had had in weeks. The Germans had been stopped and forced to retreat in both the Trebial and Buzău passes. Could the Romanians hold off the Germans in the Torsberg Pass? They could not. On October 13th, Falkenhayn drove through Torsberg Pass in Trebial, 10 kilometers within the Romanian borders. But the Germans were being pushed back in the west at the Somme. The combined French and British attack there, the 7th, was pretty big, even though it was only the preliminary British commander-in-chief, Sir Douglas Haig's push towards the region north of Cambrai. French and 6 British divisions attacked. In general, the attack prevented the guns from having time to spot German trenches and batteries. The British did manage to take the Saar, thanks to an effective creeping barrage preventing the Germans from getting their weapons into play. On the 8th, 2 Canadian divisions of the reserves tried again to take Regina Trench, but failed as they had back on the 1st. The German barbed wire had not been cut by artillery in many places, and the German machine guns took care of those soldiers stopped in no man's land. On the 12th, 5 divisions attacked the Transloy Line's outer defenses. They, too, failed to take their objectives, and the commander of 30th Division said it was pretty much because of the German practice of scattering machine guns all over in shell holes, but not in the trenches, where they just couldn't take them out with artillery. However, for the Newfoundland soldiers advancing at unit corps, they moved forward too quickly under the creeping barrage, and 1 in 10 of them was killed by their own artillery. The grinding casualties had by this time seriously weakened much of the British Fourth Army. But to General Sir Henry Rawlinson's credit, the attacks on the 12th finally opened his mind to a few truths. He wrote this in his diary. There are numerous cases of wire uncut, distant machine gun fire, and strong counterattacks. But the fact is that the Boche put up a better fight of it this time, and until we can reduce his resistance further by shaking his morale, we shall not, I fear, drive him out of his present line. Rawlinson summarized the reasons for failure. 1. Absence of surprise, attacking only between noon and 3 p.m. 2. Difficulty of observation. He mentioned the poor weather, but there was also the loss of the commanding position on the bridge as the men moved forward into valleys. 3. Recovering enemy resistance. 4. Lack of clearly defined starting trenches to give the creeping barrage a regular starting line. And 5. Distant machine gun fire. It's good to identify the problems finally, but he had bigger concerns. Haig wanted to continue until such time as they were stopped by the weather. Rawlinson told them that they didn't have enough men and ammunition, and even if they did, the weather would screw things up. Haig was aware of these issues, of course, and his solution was to build better railways to get more ammo to the front, for more men in enlist or be conscripted, and lastly, that an ordinary winter would not put a stop to British advances. He also believed they had to keep on because no one was saying how close the Germans were to the breaking point. They were a fair bit of the way there, so don't give up. The attacks would continue and continue, and we reached the end of the week. Slow going in the Somme, a short but deadly battle on the Italian front, the Germans pushing into Romania and the Bulgarians pulling back in the Balkans. As Rawlinson said, Germans were putting up a hell of a fight, and without weakening their morale further, they would not crack. At least, he finally realized that. Superior Haig had yet to do so, and would keep pounding and pounding, pounding away at the German lines until that magic moment happened. Or until he realized that it wouldn't happen. Or until winter came and froze the men to the extent that it was a moot point. 3 options. For the time being, Haig chose the first one. If you'd like to learn more about the architect of the Battle of the Somme, you can click here for our bio special about possibly even 60,000. Cadorna.
Avanti, Savoia! Savoia!
All right, Peter, almost done. Kinda. Yeah, I don't care.
Peter, I don't know about this. It seems like a bad idea.
Look, Lois, Joe is one of my best friends. All right, I'm only doing this to help him. Besides, where do you hear my Joe voice? God, I hate being stuck in this chair. No, Peter, that fights it.
All right, Peter, almost done.
Where am I? This is straight camp, Peter. I'm sorry, but I'm doing this for Lois. By the time you get out of here, you're going to be back to your old self again. Welcome to straight camp, everyone. You're all here because you... Everybody knows my name, but nobody knows who I am. What? Everybody knows my name, but nobody knows who I am. They call me Gus. Oh my goodness, is that you? Yeah, it can only be me. No, I mean, you're Gus. I'm John Cosmo. No, you're Gus. Okay. Hey, you can be Gus for me. I will do anything for my fans. However, I'm sorry. I refuse to be Gus Frank today. Hello. I'm Gustavo Frank. And I also have 10 penis. Where am I? This is straight camp, Peter. I'm sorry, but I'm doing this for Lois. By the time you get out of here, you're going to be back to your old self again. Welcome to straight camp, everyone. You're all here because you've made a choice to renounce your evil, sinful ways and redeem yourselves in the eyes of your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, who hates many people, but none more than homosexuals. And through our carefully structured program, you will succeed. All right, men, this is Harry, the homosexual. Say hi to everyone, Harry. Hi, fellas. I sure do love being
Non è finita
Harry's
finché non
choice
è
of
davvero
lifestyle is
finita.
wrong, so we're gonna beat him up for it. Now, take these baseball bats and get to it. All right, good so far. No, don't use the bats like that. No, don't use them like that either. All right, look, just put him down and use your fists. No, not like that. Where am I? Everybody knows my name. Everybody knows my name. I help take care of my wrinkles, eye bags, and door slots. Morning to bed. Once in the morning, once in the evening, and it doesn't irritate my eyes. Oh, hey, stay in the car there, homeboy. Deal with you later. Fuck you, too. You know how fast you were going? Yeah, I don't know, officer. I try to keep it under the limit. You boys looked like you were drag racing from where we were sitting there, so why don't you get yourself out of the car? Come on, officer. Yes, it is. Get out. Come on. Hands on the car. Let's go. Get out of the fucking car. Hey! All right, we gotta make sure. Get out of the fucking car, you pint-sized prick! You little shit. Get the fuck out of here. God! Oh, hey.
Dr. Hoffman?
Oh, hey.
Dr. Hoffman, what are you? You're not dressed for surgery.
Oh, hey.
Yes. This is the guy.
Dr. Hop,
Which country?
Dr. Hop,
Which country was the weakest to fight in World War II? With 425 soldiers in total, and with no tanks or airplanes, it stood little chance when the German war machine rolled over their borders. Though the police managed to stop an infiltration attempt by the German Special Forces, it was all over within a day. The 1st, 2nd and 10th Panzer Divisions, along with 50,000 men, rolled over the border. Their country was seen as a natural part of Germany by the Nazis, and as such was subjected to Germanization, with able-bodied men conscripted into the work mark, leading to the weird and probably unique situation that more of the nation's men fought for the Germans than what the country could muster in its entire armed forces when it was independent. It suffered the highest fatality rate in percentage of population of all warring parties in Western Europe. 2% of its population perishing during the occupation, devastating Luxembourg for decades to come. Which country?
Even more things you think are illegal that are actually totally legal. Number 1, driving naked. Don't have any clothes? No problem. Your car is your clothes. Just make sure to have something on.
Killers are on standby.
His grandmother shook the internet.
Even more...
started when I grabbed...
Ci siamo, ragazzi! Facciamoli a pezzi!
First, 1914, 4 weeks before the First World War began, Alberto Polio, Chief of Staff of the Italian Army, died suddenly and unexpectedly. A new Chief of Staff was appointed, and he was the man who would lead the Italian Army for more than 3 years, Luigi Cadorna. I'm Indy Nidell. Welcome to our Great War Bio series, Who Did What in World War I. Today, featuring Luigi Cadorna. Luigi Giovanni Antonio Carlo Giuseppe Cadorna was born born September 4, 1850, in Palanza on the coast of Lake Maggiore. His father, Rafael Cadorna, was a soldier and fought in the Crimean War, but later became a general in the Piedmontese army and led the conquest of Rome, final act of the Italian Risorgimento in 1870. Luigi had gone to military school in 18 as a second lieutenant in the artillery. He actually also participated in taking Rome, joining the forces led by his father. His father played a big role in Luigi's life, and indeed in Luigi's later years, he would write a biography of his father. In Rome, Luigi met Giovanna Baldi, whom he would marry and with whom he would have 3 daughters and a son, of course naming his son Raphael after his father. Over the years, Luigi Cadorna rose through the ranks. As a major, he was chief of staff of Verona Divisional Command. In the 1890s, he was a colonel commanding a regiment of Bersaglieri, and in 1898 was promoted to lieutenant general. He then had several senior staff and divisional command positions. Now, Cadorna never experienced combat as a leader until World War I, as he did not take part in the Italo-Turkish War in 1911 and 1912. So, it's the summer of 1948, and 64-year-old Cadorna has a very noteworthy career behind him and is nearing his retirement. He suddenly offered the post of Chief of Staff of the Italian Army. Cadorna accepted reluctantly according to his letters, though he accepted only on condition that, even though the king formally commanded the army, Cadorna would have effective leadership with no limitations. Now, Cadorna had a reputation for strict discipline and harsh punishments, and he is confident in his own ability and is a real authoritarian. He's also Catholic, very devout, as is his family. In fact, 2 of his daughters would become nuns. At this point, days before the war began, Italy was still linked with Germany and Austria-Hungary by the Triple Alliance. And when the war began, Cadorna began making plans to help the German attack on the French border. He was completely in the dark about the government's foreign policy, and that policy of armed neutrality took him by surprise. I'm not going to talk about the situation in Italian politics during the year of armed neutrality, after the war in 1915, because I covered all of that in our special on Italy. Cadorna was, of course, affected by the political upheaval, but he had more to worry about. Most of all, the deficiencies of men, especially officers, and material, especially artillery, in the army. So as they joined the war, Cadorna established his headquarters in Udine in the Archbishop's palace. Cadorna was not so much popular, especially among politicians, as he was a cult figure. Conan Doyle, creator of Sherlock Holmes, described him as an old Roman, a man cast in the big, simple mold of antiquity. Gabriel D'Annunzio wrote 2 poems dedicated to Cadorna, saying that he was cut-shaped, the heart is branded by a maestro whose wisdom was greater than his artistic ability. Cadorna's reply was, "It's a nice way to say I'm ugly." Luigi Cadorna would rule his army as a dictator, was called the Generalissimo, and would remove men from command for the slightest pretext. During his tenure as Chief of Staff, he would fire 217 generals, 255 colonels, and 337 lieutenant colonels. He published a bulletin in February 1915 called Attacco Frontale e Ammestramento Tattico that outlined his military theory. Luigi Cadorna would rule his army as a dictator, was called the Generalissimo, and would remove men from command for the slightest pretext. During his tenure as Chief of Staff, he would fire 217 generals, 255 colonels, and 337 lieutenant colonels. He published a bulletin in February 1915 called Attacco Frontale e Ammestramento Tattico.
Diamoli duro, ragazzi!
His military theory.
Stiamo perdendo questo settore! Avanti, dateci dentro!
The difference between victory and defeat is morale. Victory is determined by the demoralization of the enemy. This is kind of Cadorna's main limitation as a military theorist. He understood that modern war is shaped by material, but that for him was only a side note. Cadorna soon realized that the war would not be a short one, and having few alternatives, he focused his attention on the line of the Isonzo River. I cover all of the battles there in our regular Thursday episodes, but I'll highlight a few points here. The first main offensive was in June and July 1915. The gains were great, and the losses huge for the Italians, and the deficiency of the Italian artillery really showed. In fact, the first 6 months of the war, Italian casualties numbered 280,000, almost double those of the Austro-Hungarians his men faced. The Italian Minister of War, Vittorio Zubelli, very much unsatisfied with Cadorna's command, pled his case against Cadorna to the cabinet at the end of January 1916, and a council of war was suggested, made up of ministers and generals that would attempt to contend with Cadorna for control of military operations. But Cadorna had the king on his side, and that was rejected, and the only resignation from the whole affair turned out to be that of Zubelli as Minister of War. Cadorna wrote to his wife that his principal enemies were no longer the Austrians. Cadorna opposed sending Italian troops to any other fronts, such as Libya or Albania, and only sent troops to the Macedonian front because all the other allies were there, and the absence of Italian troops might mean the loss of future concessions in Asia Minor. Up to mid-1916, the Austrians had been solely on defense on the Italian front, but that changed. Rumors and even newspaper stories warned of an Austrian buildup for an offensive, but Cadorna paid them no heed. So when that offensive began, he was taken completely by surprise. This was partly because of a confused and inadequate structure for intelligence reporting, which was kind of a reflection on the way he ran his headquarters. Cadorna had, by this time, learned the importance of war material, and his army was very much beefed up in terms of artillery and machine guns, but he still believed moral preparation was the most important thing. Still, in August 1916, thanks to meticulous preparation and artillery, Italy captured Gorizia, a major victory. The failure to follow this up properly did cause over 50,000 Italian casualties, though. In fact, by 1917, the Italian army was in a state of mutiny and desertion. That year would be the worst of the war for Italy in terms of war dead. Cadorna believed the cause to be propaganda, and indeed, when the Italian army faced disaster in the field, he would not blame his own failings or his enemy's skill, but rather he found fault within his own troops, and his reaction was discipline, basically of terror. Soldiers were subjects that were shaped by punishment, not individuals who deserve to know why they fight and die. The Italians do push the Austrians back 12 kilometers failings or his enemy's skill, but rather he found fault within his own troops, and his reaction was discipline, basically of terror. Soldiers were subjects that were shaped by punishment, not individuals who deserve to know why they fight and die. The Italians do push the Austrians back 12 kilometers that summer, so the Isonzo itself can no longer be used as a defensive barrier, but Austria turned to Germany for help. The resulting battle of Caporetto broke the Italian lines. The Italians were forced back all the way to the Piave River, but Cadorna again blamed the loss on the morale of his men, and not German technique and skill. It was an outbreak of willful disobedience and defeatism by insufficient patriotic. The Italian line holds at Piave, but Cadorna's time in command is at an end after Caporetto. Armando Diaz is named the new chief of staff in November. Cadorna is assigned as the Italian representative to the Allied War Council in Versailles, but would soon resign. On July 1st, 1918, he would work on his father's biography. During the rise of fascism, he at first saw positively. He declared mistakenly that the Mussolini regime would never last because the Italian people did not want dictatorship. In 1926, Luigi Cadorna moved to Trieste, newly Italian, and died in 1928 in Bordighera, Liguria. His reputation, certainly on this channel, is not a good one, for he consistently believed that a soldier's morale was first saw positively. He declared mistakenly that the Mussolini regime would never last because the Italian people did not hold the Piave, but Cadorna's time in command is at an end after Caporetto. Armando Diaz is named the new chief of staff in November. Cadorna is assigned as the Italian representative to the Allied War Council in Versailles, but would soon resign. On July 1st, 1918, he retired to Florence, where he would work on his father's biography. During the rise of fascism, which he at first saw positively, he declared mistakenly that the river, but Cadorna again placed the loss on the morale of his men, and not German technique and skill. It was an outbreak of willful disobedience and defeatism by insufficiently patriotic troops. The Italian line holds at the Piave, but Cadorna's time in command is at an end after Caporetto. Armando Diaz is named the new chief of staff in November. Cadorna is assigned as the Italian representative to the Allied War Council in Versailles, but would soon resign. On July 1st, 1918, he retired to Florence, where he would work on his father's biography. During
Dategli addosso! Ora!
at first saw positively, he declared mistakenly that he would never last because the Italian people did not want dictatorship. In 1926, Luigi Cadorna was fully Italian and died in 1928 in Cordillera, Liguria. His reputation, certainly on this channel, is not for he consistently believed that a soldier's morale was more important than his guns, and he did not take blame for his failures in the field as much as he did take credit for his success. In some ways, he was very much a man of ancient Rome in the age of modern war. Thanks to Andrea Maisano for the research for this episode. Andrea is actually operating his own Italian... blog and Twitter about World War I. You can check out the link to his profiles. Thanks to Andrea Maisano for the research for this episode. Andrea is actually operating his own Italian blog and Twitter about World War I. You can check out the link to his profiles below. Now, if you want to know more about the... Thanks to Andrea Maisano for the research for this episode. Andrea is actually operating his own Italian blog and Twitter.
All'attacco!
Panera's new green goddess compressor melt. It's a small detail, but when enough of those details are melted together, they become big. Try the new toasted baguettes from Panera. $0.
Three wars of unification, mostly against Austria-Hungary and with occasional French intervention, did the trick, and Italian patriots, led by Giuseppe Garibaldi, had their day. However, there was still land that was seen as Italian that was not part of that union, notably some of the southern Alps and the port of Trieste that belonged to Austria-Hungary. And so the word that ultimately guided Italy's entry into the war was irredentism, redemption of Italian territory. Now, if we take a look at Italy in 1914, its population was around 35 million, making it the sixth largest European nation. But Italy was poor and mostly agricultural, and compared to the other large nations of Europe, was undeveloped. The per capita income, for example, was only half that of France's, and illiteracy was high. On top of this, Italy produced little steel and was dependent on British coal, and was not even independent in terms of food supplies, relying on imported wheat to survive. Also, even though Italy may be unified as a nation, there was no real sense of nationhood among large parts of the population, or even ethnic unity. In terms of just language, a Venetian and a Sicilian
Nemico ci sta spingendo fuori da questo
the Italian
settore!
language was the dialect of Florence and was widely spoken only among the elite. The unification had to die for. Italy had actually been trying itself out on... There were over a dozen fronts on which the First World War was fought, on or near 5 continents. It was... fought in deserts, in mud, in snow, on land, at sea, and in the air, and in spawns in the mountains. I'm Andy Nigel. Welcome to a Great War on the Road special episode about mountain warfare in the First World War. Fighting in cold climates like the Arctic or high mountains.
Uccidete quei bastardi!
When the war broke out. In 1590, 600 men on skis defeated a Muscovite invasion, and in 1747, the first... However, the first real mountain we would define as modern not appeared before the end of the 19th century, when practical climbing gear and new climbing techniques were developed. This was because of a newfound European interest in mountaineering. The heights were romanticized and inspired poets to life.
Colpiamoli duro, ragazzi!
All over the world, people began climbing mountains. The Alps, the Rocky Mountains, the Andes, even the mighty Himalayas were climbed for sports. Mountains born in 1866, crossed a new border between Austria and what was to be Italy, through the peaks and valleys, the eastern Alps, and the western Dolomites. Alpine altitudes,
Ragazzi, completemi!
7,000 feet. Of the Travananza Valley from the south. It also gave Tyrolean sharpshooters an opportunity to keep the terrain as far as the Dolomite Road under accurate fire. The Austrian marksmen used scoped versions of the standard Mannlicher M1895 straight pull rifles, but also scoped versions of what was known as the Mexican, an export Mauser rifle produced by Steyr in Austria for the Mexican army. But since they hadn't been shipped, the order was cancelled, and the already produced Mexicans were adopted by the Austro-Hungarian army. The Italians gave their troops the Carcano M91, often with French scopes. These men were known as Cecchino, derived from the slang term for Austrian Emperor Franz Joseph, Cecco Beppe. Mountain warfare was a truly brutal part of modern war, and the men who fought and died were amazingly resilient and brave men. We cover all of the battles and even some of the small skirmishes of the war in the mountains on the Italian front in our regular episodes. Today was just a brief look at some of the harshest conditions in this harshest of wars. We'd like to thank Marcus and Mario for the research for this episode. If you'd like to know more about sharpshooters and snipers on the Western Front during the First World War, you can watch our special episode about that right here. Now, your support on Patreon means that we can film episodes on original First World War locations like here in the Dolomites. If you want to see more of that, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Do not forget to subscribe. See you next time. The assault units of the Italian army, better known as the daring ones, the Arditi. I'm Indy Nidell. Welcome to a Great War special episode about the Italian Arditi in the First World War. The Arditi have their origin in companies of death, which were groups of volunteers who would perform the dangerous task of cutting or blasting enemy barbed wire defenses to pave the way for the main infantry assault. There is, however, a major difference between the companies of death and the Arditi. The former were kind of combat engineers who would clear the path for the attack, while the latter were assault units in their own right. The Arditi were chosen from among the bravest of men, men willing to engage the enemy in hand-to-hand combat. The tactical deployment of the early Arditi was to advance behind the cover of friendly artillery fire and, as the barrage lifted, to jump into enemy trenches with daggers and hand grenades. The operational idea was for them to clear and hold the trench for at least 24 hours until regular troops could relieve them. Now, the formation of the Arditi units in 1916 took place around the same time that German stormtroops were being formed, but German and Italian units were not in contact with each other at that time in the field or previously in the war. So there was no... Around the same time that German stormtroops were being formed, but German and Italian units were not in contact with each other at that time in the field or previously in the war. So there was no direct German stormtroop influence on the Arditi. In fact, Italian historian Angelo Corky argues that the Arditi developed independently and had a wider scope of operations than their more famous German counterparts. They were, however, influenced by Austro-Hungarian Jagdkommando, which were spontaneously formed within regiments for trench raids. What the Arditi did, in common with German stormtroops, was their expanded arsenal of weapon proficiencies like machine guns and flamethrowers. The Arditi not only deployed their own units within the army, but also had their own uniforms and those that came to the rear of the area. Adopted the red flame on the open color. Most of the Alpini mounted troops, those from the regular infantry or black flames. A big emblem was the skull with a dagger clenched in it. Not only deployed their own units within the army, but also had their own uniforms and emblems. Those that came from the Bersaglieri, light infantry, adopted the red flames on the open collar. Those from the Alpini, mountain troops, employed their own units within the army, but also had their own uniforms and emblems. Those that came from the Bersaglieri, light infantry, adopted the red flames on the open collar. Those from the Alpini, mountain troops, had green flames, and those from the regular infantry wore black flames. A big emblem was the skull with a dagger clenched in its teeth, the traditional symbol that no quarter could be asked nor given in combat. This was the symbol of the vicious hand-to-hand fighting and willingness to fight to the death of the Arditi. Never surrender. They were deployed as independent battalions with Roman numerals, and initially, the Arditi were all volunteers. But as the losses mounted, soldiers were increasingly assigned to Arditi units on the recommendation of their commanding officers. Many of them came from crack troops like the Bersaglieri and Alpini, known for their stamina. They were trained in a special school behind the Isonzo River front, a school that recreated frontline conditions in the use of explosives. There were many fatalities among recruits, and also during battle, where the casualty rate among the Arditi was 25 to 30% per attack. Well, their motto was "O la vittoria, o tutti e copiati." Either we win or we all die. Battle where the casualty rate among the Arditi was 25 to 30% per attack. Well, their motto was "O la vittoria, o tutti e copiati." We win or we all die. They did, in fact, all die. At Monte was they had housing there was a system of bonuses for taking prisoners. 10 lira for a private, 20 for an NCO, and 50 for an officer, as well as one for capturing a few weapons. 5 lira for a rifle, 50 for a machine gun, and 500 for artillery. These were originally given to men.
Ein weiterer Sieg fürs Vaterland!
He did, however, play a big role as a military and political force that bolstered the morale of the regular troops. But the only time they had a real noticeable effect on operations was during the Vittorio Veneto offensive in October 1918. 12 Arditi units were formed into 2 assault divisions, and it was the largest concentration of Arditi during the war. They spearheaded the attack on the Austro-Hungarian forces and paved the way for Italian victory. That victory was somewhat tainted by the breakdown of discipline in the Austro-Hungarian army, resulting from declarations of independence from many parts of the empire a few days after the offensive began, which caused mass desertions. And post-war? Well, post-war isn't really the purview of this channel, but the bravery and patriotism of the Arditi spoke to the Italian public imagination. The Italian nationalist poet Gabriele D'Annunzio was the first to really capitalize politically on the Arditi, inciting several of them to participate in his coup in 1919 in what is now Rijeka in Croatia, though this revolt was put down by the regular Italian army. I don't know if that influenced the decision in 1920 to disband the Arditi units, but that's what happened. But their legacy lived on in the political street fighting leading up to the Second World War, and both fascists and anti-fascists adopted symbols of the Arditi, so you can see what they meant to the people of Italy as a symbol of bravery and Italian national pride. Sure, you all want to know more about shock troops from the Entente, and we will talk about them in the next special. What you could call special forces of
Tempo di sporcarci le mani!
For the research for this episode. If you'd like to see the episode about German schools, click right here for that. Do not forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter, and don't forget to subscribe. one special about trench warfare already, various close combat raiding groups and assault patrols engaged in trench combat. But you could really see the mass slaughter at Verdun began to change overall infantry tactics to a certain extent.
Torna tra le linee e datti da fare! Stanno per travolgerci!
Andre Labarre was one of the first who wrote about the realities of trench warfare and how small, concentrated troop formations would need to operate independently as opposed to under rigid directives from high command. While the Allies mostly ignored his writing, German high command used captured texts of his pamphlets and combined his ideas with their own experiences of infiltration tactics. The Concept Assault Detachment was the first experimental battalion deployed on the Western Front in March 1916, and it consisted of a headquarter element, 2 pioneer companies equipped with body armor, specialized shields, and steel helmets, and a rifle company as support, equipped with a 37mm gun. It was really too soon to see any success or to even use the new weapon as intended, but the general idea was beginning to form. The real birthplace of the stormtroops was in the east. The terrifying new tactics used by the Russians in the breakthrough of the Brusilov offensive, sudden but massive and accurate artillery strikes, quickly followed by detachments, soon to be adapted and improved by the German captains Willy Rohr and Bernhard Redmann. Rohr was already known for their shock troop tactics in the retaking of the Hartmannsweilerkopf in 1915, and as part of the 5th Army at the Battle of Verdun. Together with Redmann, they developed new doctrines of small unit tactics. They saw the new shock troops would be quick and mobile while being flexible in their approach of a situation. Precise operational timing was the key for maximum effectiveness. They chose 2 types of German infantry to build the core of the stormtroops. First, the Jäger Corps. The Jäger were light infantry, traditionally specializing in woodland or wilderness combat and operating in small units. Their skill in light infantry tactics like sharpshooting and their decentralized leadership made them an ideal choice for stormtroop detachments. Second, the Pioneer Corps. Like the Jäger, the Pioneers were experts in small unit operations under low-level command structures. Their expertise lay in erecting or breaching obstacles and in the art of grenade throwing. This made them very good for storming enemy defensive positions. In addition to their weapon and attack training, they studied how the enemy reacted to their assaults and moved in the trenches, and how to prevent resistance from forming. The new stormtroop tactics of Rohr and Redmann maximized their training with deadly effectiveness. The new battalions had very strict requirements. Soldiers could not be over 25 years old, had to be mentally and physically tough, single, athletic, and also had to have one other characteristic. They had to be aggressive. This was the key factor in the new doctrine. It was vital that the storm would always take the initiative from the enemy. The new tactics also changed something else, which is often overlooked. They brought about a revolution within German military culture against the old style of Prussian leadership, which held to strict rules in the chain of command. Orders came from high up, and junior officers coordinated with their superiors. But for stormtroopers to be effective, this had to change, and junior leaders had to be allowed to make their own decisions. Stormtroopers went hand in hand with decentralized leadership. Führen nach Direktiven, leading through direct command, and Auftragstaktik, mission tactics, all without coordinating.
Inchiodateli su quella posizione, ragazzi!
Direktiven, leading through direct command, and Auftragstaktik, mission tactics, all without coordinating with high command, all revolutionary thoughts. Stormtroops became the new
Abbiamo messo in sicurezza la posizione!
soldiers who lived and trained in exclusive companies and enjoyed better rations and moved away from the front lines than regular troops. On the other hand, their missions were extremely dangerous, and the casualty, all without coordinating with high command, all revolutionary thoughts. Stormtroopers became the new elite in the German army, hand-picked soldiers who lived and trained in exclusive companies and enjoyed better rations and more time away from the front lines than regular troops. On the other hand, Their missions were extremely dangerous, and the casualty rate was extremely high. General Erich Ludendorff encouraged their deployment in all German divisions, and they continued to evolve. Soon they would have flamethrower, trench mortar, and grenadier detachments, and General von Hutier would give his name to Hutier infiltration tactics, which combined surprise artillery bombardments with lightning encirclement movements. Like regular trench raiders, stormtroops were not tasked with capturing and holding trench lines. They were lightly armed to the teeth, with loads of ammunition and hand grenades. In general, they preferred the shortened Mauser M98 carbine, the 98K, rapid-fire pistols like the Mauser C96, Danish Madsen light machine guns, and the MP-18 submachine gun. Special grenadier squads would carry bags full of hand grenades, while others operated the flamethrower, the rifle grenade, and small mortars. They were trained to use all arms in combination. Troops were not tasked with capturing and holding trench lines. They were lightly equipped, but armed with loads of ammunition and hand grenades. In general, they preferred the short Mauser 98 carbine, the 98K, rapid-fire pistols, the C96, Danish Madsen light machine guns, and the MP-18 submachine gun. Special squads would carry bags full of hand grenades, while others operated the flamethrower, the rifle grenade, and small mortars. They were trained to use all arms in combination with each other. They also studied the enemy's weaponry to be able to take it and use it against him. The standard attack was to approach the enemy unseen, perhaps at night or in fog, cut the barbed wire, bombardments with lightning encirclement movements. Like regular trench raiders, stormtroopers were not tasked with capturing and holding. They were lightly equipped, but armed to the teeth, with loads of ammunition and hand grenades. In general, they preferred the shortened Mauser M98 carbine, the 98K, rapid-fire pistols like the Mauser C96, Danish Madsen light machine guns, and the MP-18 submachine gun. Special grenadier squads would carry bags full of hand grenades, while others operated the flamethrower, the rifle grenade, and small mortars. They were trained to use all arms in combination with each other. They also studied the enemy's weaponry to be able to take it and use grenades, while others operated the flamethrower, the rifle grenade, and small mortars. They were trained to use all arms in combination with each other. They also studied the enemy's weaponry to be able to take it and use it against him. The standard attack was to approach the enemy unseen, perhaps at night or in fog, cut the barbed wire, and wait for a sudden, violent, and accurate artillery barrage. In the confusion of the barrage, they emerged from cover and assaulted key points of the enemy defenses, but rather than occupy the trench lines or engage the enemy en masse, they pushed through the trench system, circling and confusing the enemy, and decimating the enemy flanks and the moving exposed reinforcements. The regular German infantry would then head into the trenches and destroy the defense lines. By the end of 1916, over 30 divisions had experimented with, trained, finally integrated special battalions of assault troops into their forces. The Romanian front, at Cambrai and Caporetto, the efficiency of the new German trained, finally integrated special battalions of assault troops into their forces. From the Bosch to the Romanian front, at Cambrai and Caporetto, the efficiency of the new German elite forces was astonishing. The final hours of the offensive German war machine were perhaps the stormtroops' finest. The Kaiserschlacht, the German spring offensive of 1918, had great initial success because the stormtroops broke through the Allied defenses along the entire line. The stormtroop doctrine, of course, survived the war. The paramilitary Freikorps used the martial imagery of the stormtroops, and Adolf Hitler created the SA, which broke through the Allied defenses along the entire line. The stormtroop doctrine, of course, survived the war. The paramilitary Freikorps used the martial imagery of the stormtroops, and Adolf Hitler created the SA, the Sturmabteilung. But really, many of the tactics pioneered in the Great War are still taught today all over the world. Erwin Rommel's infantry attacks is even taught at officers' academies in the United States. And what did it mean to the enemy on the ground? Well, here's what Rommel himself had to say all over the world. Erwin Rommel's infantry attacks is even taught at officers' academies. Many of the small unit tactics pioneered in the Great War are still today all over the world. Erwin Rommel's infantry attacks is even... Many of the small unit tactics pioneered in the Great War are still taught today all over the world. Erwin Rommel's infantry attacks is even taught at officers' academies in the United States. And what did it mean to the enemy on the ground? Well, here's what Rommel himself had to say. The fire unit up above blazed away, followed a few seconds later by Friedel's assaults, running through the entanglement path.
Mach dich bereit zum Kampf!
Rommel himself had to say. The fire unit up above blazed away, followed a few seconds later by Friedel's assault squad, running through the entanglement path and into the hostile position. Then the forward units of my detachment began to move. The sharp crack of hand grenades in our immediate vicinity drowned out the noise of firing up on the right. A few strides through smoke and haze, we were in the hostile trench. I reached the trench at the head of my detachment. Up on the right, the still was in that direction. The configuration of the terrain, the dense undergrowth, prevented these people from seeing that we had already smashed into their position. They did not see company after company moving at the double into the gap in their defense. At the head of my detachment, up on the right, the trench garrison was still resisting the attack, supposedly coming from that direction into the hostile position. Then the forward units of my detachment began to move. The sharp crack of hand grenades in our immediate vicinity drowned out the noise
Ihre
of
Position
firing
an!
on the right. A few strides through smoke and haze, we were in the hostile trench. I reached the trench at the head of my detachment. Up on the right, the trench garrison was still resisting the attack, supposedly coming from that direction. The configuration of the terrain, the dense undergrowth, prevented these people from seeing that we had already smashed into their position. They did not see company after. A few strides through smoke and haze, we were... Here's what Rommel himself had to say. The fire unit up above...
Verteidigt diese
A few
Position!
seconds later by Friedel's assault squad, running through the entanglement path and into the hostile position. Then the forward units of my detachment began to move. The sharp crack of hand grenades in our immediate vicinity drowned out the noise of firing up on the right. A few strides through smoke and haze, we were in the
Deserteure werden
hostile trench.
erschossen!
I reached the trench at the head of my detachment. Up on the right, the trench
Komm
garrison
zurück,
was
Feigling!
the attack, supposedly coming from that direction. The configuration of the terrain, the dense undergrowth, prevented these people from seeing that we had already smashed into their position. They did not see company after company moving at the double into the gap in their defensive system. I said it before, it's really fitting here. This was just a brief look at the beginnings of the Storm Troop. Other countries had their own basic doctrine, and we will talk about them later. If you're curious to learn a bit more about trench-raid tactics and post-war combat in the First World War, you can click here for a special episode, which was the first part of this mini-series. There's some detailed pictures of the Storm Troops. Like us on Facebook or follow us on Instagram. See you next time. When people think of the First World War, one of the very first images that comes to mind is of soldiers in the filthy, muddy trenches, fighting, smoking, or just being miserable. So today, here's a special episode of our show about the war in the trenches. I'm Indy Neidell. Welcome to the Great War. The First World War began and ended with a great deal of movement and huge events. However, it remains typified by its lack of movement and the years of stalemate on the Western Front. The trenches were the front lines. But behind them were
Vorwärts!
massive supply lines, training establishments, section, or bay. Only that section is affected. Behind that is another line called the support line. Now here you find dugouts cut into the side of the trench wall. Often very small, but with room for maybe 3 or men to squeeze in for shelter or for telephone position. Communications trenches link the rear areas with the forward lines, and it was along these that all men, equipment, and supplies were transported. Moving out to the front line were further trenches called beyond the protected belts of barbed wire that terminated somewhere in no man's land in a listening post manned by 1 or maybe 2 infantrymen. Now, the distance between enemy trenches varied from as little as 30 to several hundred meters. And if you captured an enemy trench, you had a new problem: how to rear around. As you now needed a protected front in what had been the enemy's unprotected rear. See, so regularly rotated through a basic trench cycle. Along these, that all men and supplies were transported. Moving out from the front line were further trenches called saps, which often went beyond the protected barbed wire that terminated somewhere in no man's land in a listening post manned by 1 or maybe 2 infantrymen. Now the distance between enemy trenches varied from as little as 30 to several hundred meters. And if you captured an enemy trench, you had a new problem: how to rear around. As you now needed a protected front in what had been the enemy's unprotected rear. See, soldiers were regularly rotated through a basic trench cycle, fighting in the front line, followed by climbing the support lines, then being in reserve, then a rest period. And the daily trench routine was something like this. An hour before dawn, those who were sleeping would stand to. Everyone fixed bayonets and readied himself to guard against a dawn raid by the enemy. Both sides carried out their respective statutes. Despite the knowledge that each side was prepared, it was still at this time that many attacks were carried out. As the light grew, this daily ritual was accompanied by the morning hate. This was when both sides relieved the tension of the early hours with indiscriminate machine gun fire and heavy artillery shell. Following stab 2, the men would have their breakfast and clean their weapons. The cleaning would be done in shifts though, with only a few of the men cleaning their weapons at any one time. Then came the daily inspection. Weapons would be checked, as would the men's clothing. This inspection would include a foot inspection for signs of trench foot. Now, trench foot was a medical condition peculiar to trench life. It was a fungal infection of the feet caused by cold, wet, and unsanitary trench conditions, and could turn gangrenous and result in amputation. 3,000 casualties from trench foot are said to have been suffered by the British Army by the end of 1914. Although as trench conditions improved in 1915, it rapidly faded. Daily chores included sandbags, repairing ductwork, pumping out the water that gathered, digging latrines, and so forth. This was followed along the lines of order. It was restricted in the trenches to what was essential. So when men were not engaged in a specific chore, they settled down to time-killing activities: reading, writing letters, maybe grabbing whatever sleep they could. In the middle of war, the boredom was often crushing. With the dusk came another round of standing to exactly the same procedure as at dawn, and with the onset of darkness, the men would be ordered to stand down, and the night's work of resupply, maintenance, and sentry duty would begin. Now, sentry duty was never for 2 hours, as there was a real chance and falling asleep on duty was considered to be such a serious offense that the penalty was death by firing squad. Nighttime also called the need to patrol no man's land, manless and send out firing parties. Occasionally, a patrol would meet an enemy patrol in the darkness, and they could each be faced with a decision of whether to fight or simply let the other pass. Such fighting, though, would be hand-to-hand, as gunfire would fight up first from trench machine guns. It has been estimated that about 1/3 of all average casualties on the Western Front were actually sustained in trenches. To the men serving in them, death was a constant companion. Even when it was quiet, death came in many guises. In busy sectors, the constant shell fire brought random death. Many shelling casualties were buried alive, and those who couldn't be dug out suffered a terrible death. All soldiers in the trenches also quickly learned to curb their natural inclination suffered a terrible death indeed. All soldiers in the trenches also quickly learned to curb their natural to invite the sniper's bullet. Disease also took a heavy toll in the trench. Killing casualties were buried alive, and those who couldn't be dug out was a constant companion. Even when it was quiet, death came in many guises. In busy sectors, the constant shell fire brought random death. Many shelling casualties were buried alive, and those who couldn't be dug out suffered a terrible death indeed. All soldiers in the trenches also quickly learned to curb their natural inclination to peer no man's land. To do so was to invite the sniper's bullet. Disease also took a heavy toll in the trenches, as you may imagine, but no overview of life in the trench would be complete without mentioning the one overriding feature that instantly struck anyone visiting in mind: the appalling smell, which came from several sources, including rotting flesh, and number in the thousands, even tens of thousands. It would have been impossible to bury the dead immediately following the battle. They would lie out in no man's land for days before they could be dealt with. Many died in shell holes that filled up with water, or bodies simply sank into the mud. The stench of rotting flesh was a constant in life in the trenches, overflowing latrines. The men would try and fill these in and dig new ones, but soon there was no room to dig new ones. In fact, it got ruined after 4 years. The stench of humanity. Men who had not been afforded the luxury of that in weeks or even months would have smell. There was also the smell of disinfectant used to fight disease and
Tropi di trincea!
the men on the lines actually were used to this olfactory overload, not overcome first-time visitors to the front. There were also millions of rats. If you're wondering what the men ate, food for soldiers in the trenches during World War I was at times a luxury. Getting hot food from the field kitchens to the frontline trenches could be impossible. The battle was imminent or in progress.
Stiamo perdendo questa battaglia!
Got just over a pound of meat each, the same bread, and a half-pound of vegetables each day. But by 1917, the official ration was much smaller. Fresh meat was getting harder to come by, and the ration was reduced to just 6 ounces of woolly beef. Common foods were makanaki stew and hard biscuits. All men received the same rations, and the ranks were always fed before the officers, although when able, horses, Indian or both. There was no official vegetarian option, although provision was made for Indian personnel. There was very little waste, and leftovers were sold as swill to local farmers, while drippings were saved for use in manufacturing explosives. The key to success in the trenches was communication. In the mainstay of communication was the runner, who braved bullets and shells, mud and mayhem to take messages to and from forward positions. Although telephones were relatively commonplace, they were wires that were easily cut by shell fire or by accident. A big use for the telephone was for forward observation posts to spot for the artillery, and it was not a happy soldier who was told, in the face of shell fire and rifle bullets, trace and repair things in the telephone wires. It was without instant communication, the commander was in an impossible position. Radio was still a fairly new medium. The advantage was obvious, and it was hard to leave the road. Rats, bad food, disease, dead bodies. But I find it hard to imagine artillery shells, machine guns, no man's land, trench foot, and boredom. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what life in the trenches was like. I don't know about you, but I find it hard to imagine anything worse than the filth, the smell, and the depression of the trenches, the constant
Muoversi!
and the psychological effect on the soldiers of the war was catastrophic.
In arrivo!
There is no romantic notion of war when you don't find it. Darkness travels away. It is the same alive as ever. Only a live thing leaps my hand. A queer sardonic rat. As I pull the parapet's poppy to stick behind my ear. Droll rat. They would shoot you if they knew your cosmopolitan sympathies. Now you've touched this. A live thing leaps my hand. A queer sardonic rat. as I pull the parapet's poppy to stick behind my ear. They would shoot if they knew your cosmopolitan sympathies. Now you have touched this English hag. You will be saved to a German soon, no doubt. If it be to cross the sleeping creek between. It seems you inwardly grin as you pass. Strong eyes, fine limbs, haughty athletes. Paths that you provide. Bonds of murder sprawled in the bowels of the earth. The torment. Do you see in our eyes? And the shrieking iron and flame hurled from still heavens. What quaver? What this is? Poppy was also a and our never dropping. I sing. Just like with the dust. If you'd like to know more about when trench warfare began in the Great War, check out these episodes about the Battle of the Aisne. And if you'd like to cook the McConaughey stew yourself, check out our video of the recipe right here or in the info box below. And let us know what you thought of the stew in the comments section. The First World War saw huge leaps and bounds in the development of technological warfare, but it also made unprecedented demands on what many might see as archaic methods of fighting. Sure, there were tanks, planes, and machine guns, but the actual fighting still depended on the physical and emotional suffering and sacrifice of men.
Guys, Armageddon here. You asked for it, you got it. The proper comparison for the MP40 is the grease gun. But this one just doesn't have the ergonomics. You gotta mess around over here with charge of the bolt and like this. Now you're killing, now you ain't. I mean, that quote is definitely a win for a grease gun, but magazine release isn't as nice, but it is fast, so that's a bonus. It's a little bit more work to take down. You gotta thread off this barrel and then everything peeks out the front. I can get behind that though. However, literally getting behind the sights, they're way worse. It's also even worse to hold because you got some stuff digging into you, no matter where you go. However, it is more sturdy than the wobble stock TA.
Assailant. I definitely don't want to die today. I have so much to live for. Come on, shoot me! Oh, good day! I don't wear my bulletproof vest. What are you waiting for? I'm wide open! Don't you hate how the heart is? Right about here. Just kiss your fruitcakes. Oh, damn, I wanted to die, not to... And there won't be any more trouble, I promise you. Okay, if I could just talk to us. I know I can make you understand. Please, talk to must. Walter, I can convince him, okay? Just let me, please. Please. Let me talk to him. Shut up. I'll give you Jesse Pinkman. Just do it. No, I didn't do it. I can't. Now. It's gonna have to be you. What? Listen to me. You're closer than we are. You'll have about a 20-minute lead. They've got me at the laundry and they're going to kill me. Shut it. Do it, just do it. What the hell was that? Exactly. You might want to hold off. Yeah? Why? Because your boss is going to need me. 6353 Wantabo, apartment 6. Yeah.
Mi trovo qui, la terra intorno a me, di stessa qui, reliquia fugace, mentre lassù la brezza scuote i rami, tentano.
Ronald Reagan was rhetorically a strong advocate for
Hey guys, what's up?
We need a...
Ronald Reagan was rhetorically a strong advocate for the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms. But when John Hinckley Jr. used a Rome .22 caliber RG-14 revolver to shoot him, a big part of Reagan's legacy would be to lobby for and pass strict gun control measures. This is the guns of the presidents. Ronald Reagan owned a number of firearms, including a .38 revolver and a .223 caliber rifle, which he was known to use for target practice at his ranch. After the assassination attempt, Reagan signed the Firearms Owners Protection Act of 19...
Hey guys, what's up?
We need a hot 15-year-old Asian girl with a thing for smart guys.
What?
Howard, that's racist. Any 15-year-old girl will do the trick.
It's possible she may have misunderstood us.
Dr. Cooper? Oh, are we interrupting?
No, please come in. I've decided to refocus my efforts and use my people skills to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Look, I'm going to solve the Middle East crisis by building an exact replica of Jerusalem in the middle of the Mexican desert.
To what end?
You know, it's like the baseball movie. You build it and they will come. The Jewish people.
What if they don't come?
We'll make it nice, put out a spread.
Well, obviously you're very busy with your, Come, Dennis. You'll have to excuse Dr. Cooper. He's been under a lot of, he's nuts.
Time to expand the USSR even more. Hi, Yugoslavs. Hi, can you guys join me? Whatever. Hi, China.
Hello, Russia.
Do you want to join me?
Sure.
Glad you wanted to join.
I wonder what Russia is doing. Probably being a dumbass as always.
Hi, North and South Korea. Can you both join me?
No.
Both. Hi, Japan. Hi, Taiwan.
Hello.
Care to join me?
Yes, please don't attack us.
We wouldn't appreciate it.
Well, to bad to sad. Taiwan, you're first.
No, please.
Please. Your turn, Japan.
Russia, don't do this.
And
By the way, your president is shit.
bitch. I've done it. I've formed the greater USSR.
Will you be our nanny forever? Unless Bella
security force track me down.
I'm sorry, what?
Natalia make a few enemies before she leave Belarus. Natalia safe, baby.
Ryan?
Lock door.
Why would I... Ryan!
No kissing. Under bed.
Son was in the back seat.
Talia, will you...
Many F-22 critics thought that the F-15 would be excellent enough to survive the battlefields of tomorrow, and there's no need to replace it with the F-22 Raptor. So to silence the Rapture critics, U.S. Air Force did a mock combat exercise in 2003, in which they pitched 5 F-15 Eagles against just one F-22 Raptor. These 5 F-15s were being flown by experienced pilots, and the rules of engagement were very clear. Kill the Raptors or be killed by the Raptor. Both angry birds took off, and then came the action. None of the F-15 pilots were able to see the F-22, and suddenly they found that their free trial of living has been expired. F-15 pilots used all their back and countermeasures, but all failed badly against the Raptor, and the only time they saw the Raptor was when it flew directly overhead their cockpit. One F-22 shot down all 5 F-15 out of the sky without sustaining a single scratch to its body. Many F...
What are these? Cigarettes. People used to light the tips on fire and inhale the smoke.
Why? They contained a substance called nicotine, which caused an addictive rush. That is, until they got cancer, which at the time was often fatal.
The odor is very interesting. Dr. Finn said the tip is to be ignited and the smoke inhaled. The sensation is wonderful. I have never experienced such a flavor. I feel as if I have been standing my entire life and I just sat down. But seeing ghouls, do you feel them? I do. We must have more. 500 cigarettes.
Take out my penis and place it in the box on the right. Again. I would put my penis...
Sure, you don't have to say penis every time, just left or right.
Hey, this was your idea.
I didn't think it'd go on this long.
Okay, penis. Left.
Keep going.
Right. Left. Right.
Jerry, are you fucking peeking?
Tell me what's going on. You're scaring me.
as likely to shit a balloon as I am to become a dolphin.
Those are things that could happen.
Jerry, everything is as likely as anything else. Which is why it's weird that you're at all likely to...
To what? To what?
Jerry, has your mother been leaving messages?
3 texts. I'm afraid to read them.
Read them.
She's asking if she can come visit. Why would she want that?
Jerry, I'm going to tell you something I've never told anyone. We need to go to Panda Express.
My nickname in prison was Psycho Bill. Most people just stay away from me because I'm so muscular and big, and I believed I was fucking invincible. All I did was knocking people out, escaping, and just adding on to my time. You needed to be beefed up and strong enough mentally and physically to survive and to live. If you were threatening me, I would knock you out with 1 punch. I was trying to be extorted by 5 fellas from Richmond. 5 of them came, and they came with little kitchen knives. I figured when they jumped on me, I'm dead. So I went to one of my buddies that worked in the machine shop, had him make me 2 big-ass butcher knives. Took magazines, duct taped them knives to my hands, wrapped around my legs, wrapped around my body, so I pretty much had body armor on. When I saw them come up the stairway to the 4th floor, I jumped right down the middle of it and said, "Let's dance, motherfuckers." And they looked at me like I was a demon and ran.
Hi, package for Brian Griffin.
Oh, I can sign for that. Package Pride!
Wonder what this is. It's my book, and there's a note from my publisher. We are returning all of the unsold copies of Faster Than the Speed of Love.
You guys got a garage or something? We got like 300 boxes of these things.
Wow, that's a lot of boxes!
Oh, this is so weird. Look what they used to pack your book in. Shredded up pieces of your book. Okay, that's it. I'm finished. What are you talking about? I'm finished. I'm done. It's over. Clearly, I am not meant to be a writer. I have tried, and nothing has worked out. I put my heart out there, and it keeps getting stomped on. Well, that's it. No more. I'm done writing. What? Writing's the only thing that's giving your alcoholism any credibility. Oh, hey, I just thought of something. Hold on a sec. I bought a vase last week and it's still in the box, and I just want to check to see what they used to pack it in. Ah, it's your book!
Hi.
How much product do you have? 38 pounds. Ready to go at a moment's notice. Will I hear from you? I have been honest. Pipes, I guess.
It's 14 Los Pollos restaurants in between here and Nevada. You could be at any one of them.
38 pounds, $1.2 million. Truck stop 2 miles south of exit 13 on the 25. 1 hour
I need the product. I need the product now.
What happens when baby listens? What happens when baby listens to the voices of the radio and doesn't listen to mother? You get the gross. When baby's mad, mother gets disappointed. And the moments of the world.
Changing mix.
You strain all the...
Changing mix.
If you strain all of the gold out of your Goldschlager and take it to a pawn shop, oddly enough, they'll give you just enough to buy another fifth of Goldschlager.
Actually, this is not true. The gold in Goldschlager is made with gold leaf, which is 30 times thinner than a human hair. There's been tests done on how much gold you can actually pull out of Goldschlager, and at best you'll get 0.02 grams, which equates to roughly $1. And no, you can't take your dollar into the liquor store and buy more Goldschlager.
It is too round at the top. It needs... If you strain all of the gold out of your Goldschlager and take it to a pawn shop, oddly enough, they'll give you just enough to buy another fifth of Goldschlager.
Actually,
it is too round at the top. It needs to be pointy. Round is not scary. Pointy is scary. This will put a smile on the faces of the enemy. They will think that it is a huge robot's dildo flying towards them. No, Supreme Leader, the shape of the missile top has nothing to do with aerodynamics. It is about the vehicle. No, it sticks in the ground and then kaboom. Supreme Leader, I mean, perhaps some of your information about bombs is coming from cartoons. Nonsense. I have been watching research films. In this film, just one question. Was there a duck who, when the explosion is happening, his bill goes around the back of his head, and then in order to talk, he had to put it back this way? There was somebody who suffered a deformity like that. Yeah, I am now 100% sure that you are watching that. In fact, for 1 second, pretend that I'm an idiot. Okay, I'm there. Let's just agree to disagree.
Countries, who has the most gold? So 613 tons here. We're doing pretty well. We got more. We got 658 tons. We got even more. We got 785 tons of gold. Talk about the national reserves, right? Oh yeah, and also I broke the 1,000. I got 1,040 tons of gold. Took a lot of it from me. Not my fault. You started the whole thing. But we got 1,948 tons.
The maniac did it.
What country?
Hello, Griffin. Mr. Punishment? Hey, how you been? Not good. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Wow, a limo, huh? Hey, are these diet rights just to take? No, those are my diet rights. Pull over. Hey!
Peter, how many times do I have to tell you to stop leaving your wet swimsuit at the bottom of the stairs?
I never know when I'll be back in the sprinklers. I gotta be able to grab and go when I start spraying.
Ah, you're impossible.
See that, Chris? In the Hungry Hippos game of marriage, I just ate one of her models.
I don't think you should be proud of that, Dad.
Excuse me?
Let me give you a nickel's worth of free advice from one happily taken man to another. We've got 2 of these, and only 1 of these, so we should listen twice as much as we talk. Remember, Dad, never question your wife's choices. After all, you were one of them.
Peter.
May I help you, sir?
How much?
Rinasceremo insieme la